We're live. Happy Saturday morning, everybody. I have some breaking news I wanted to bring to you guys in regards to SVB Bank. Silicon Valley Bank, ladies and gentlemen, just announced its collapse. And not only did it collapse, this is the largest banking failure since 2008. Does this mean that we're going back to 2008 and everything that's happening with SVB Bank when Lehman Brothers and AGI and all these large firms actually collapsed in 2008? Well, I wouldn't compare this to 2008 yet. Now, here's what's happening. Right now, if you guys have not watched my prior videos on the FDIC and financial distress, the FDIC is who insures the money that you and I deposit into banks. Now, we just think the banks are safe, right? Like you go into Bank of America, you go into JP Morgan, you go into Chase and SVB and any other bank out there, and we take our hard-earned cash, our hard-earned capital, and we deposit into the bank. And so I always tell people, a bank is an intermediate place to keep your money. You should never keep your money in the bank. One, you'd get no returns on it. And so just the other day, I had a PNG Bank, which was BBVA Compass, call me because we had sold a building. We had a little over $1 million that went into that bank account. We took that money out. We left that account with $6,000 in it. And we took that money and we deployed it into different accounts to be able to utilize for investment purposes into some dividend-paying stocks and some assets on real estate that we needed so that we can collateralize some of our builds. And so it's worthless in the bank. And the guy calls and says, hey, Jerome, how can we win over some of that money for you to keep it here? And I said, you can't. There's nothing on this earth that you can do to keep that money in your bank. It's stupid. Keeping money in the bank is absolutely absurd. And here's why. Look, 89% of the bank's money with SVB right now, they had a $175 billion in deposits, 89% of which is not insured by the FDIC, meaning that 89% of $175 billion, ladies and gentlemen, what is that? So we got 178, 3, times 0.89. So that's $158.5 billion just poof, vanished into thin air that the FDIC will never be able to recover for people. It's one of the largest banking failures in history. Ladies and gentlemen, banks are an interim place to keep money because you have to, but ladies and gentlemen, you have to deploy that money into hard assets. Now, let's go over the details of this because the shares in the United States and Europe on SVB Bank just plummeted. And you're gonna see the stocks continue to go down on Monday. Now, doors were closed on Friday. According to the FDIC, doors will reopen on Monday of their main offices and all branches. Now, here's what's happened is, as of right now, California banking regulators put the bank, SVB, into the hands of the FDIC, okay, who insures money. The FDIC was appointed as the receiver, okay? So anybody who's ever went through a shutdown from a government agency, whether it's the CFPB, whether it's the IRS, whether it's the SEC, whatever it is, when a governmental agency shuts you down, your business down, what ends up happening is they assign it to an attorney who becomes what's called the receiver of that account. What the receiver's job is to do is to sell off assets that you had or your business had, or now in the case of SVB, the assets of SVB. So their job as the receiver is to sell off all assets, okay? So the FDIC is now the receiver and has been appointed by the courts as the receiver of all of the assets of SVB. So when you go in and you try to take out your money from SVB Bank on Monday, Silicon Valley Banks, you're going to find that you're going to be limited on what you can take out. Because what's going to happen is everybody's going to go down there. They're going to try to get a small sliver of whatever that $175 billion that's lost out into their pockets. And then what the FDIC is going to do is they're going to start relinquishing assets. So they're going to start selling off assets that the bank has as investments. When they sell these off, the money is supposed to be utilized for legal and administrative fees, as well as recovering the debt that's owed to you guys, to the people, the customers. And now, what ends up truly happening, let me tell you the truth behind the matter, is that the attorneys win. What's going to end up happening is there's going to be so much money incurred, so much debt incurred from attorneys and legal fees, miraculously enough, that whatever is sold off by the receiver, by the FDIC, it first relinquishes the debt of the legal standpoint of what it takes to settle that everything that's going on. There's going to be a ton going on: lawsuits, a ton of legal proceedings, a lot of settlements. There's going to be a ton of stuff that's going on with SVB Bank over the next year or longer. And so the money that's brought in, they usually do what's called a fire sale. So they relinquish the debt. Now, this is the way receivership works, okay? So receivership, they go in and they take bids on the assets. So somebody goes in, typically the bids are underbid. There's a lot of political ploy in here. So the people that know the receivers get first knowing knowledge. Now, the best way, if you have interest in buying off some of the assets of SVB, because there'll be assets of all different asset classes, low-end assets, residential, single-family homes, all the way up to big multi-million and billion-dollar skyscrapers, guys. And so what you do is you go in and you get what's called an SEC attorney, or you'll get an attorney that's a banking attorney that specializes in banking law, and you will have them put in offers to the receiver, to the FDIC on those assets. Okay, so maybe you're not doing it, but you want to just understand the process. So if a company gets shut down by a governmental agency and a receiver has those assets in holding and they're going to sell them off, then we typically will get like an SEC attorney, or we'll get a bankruptcy attorney that is in the state that is holding the receivership of that entity. This one being SVB Bank. And then we'll write up offers on regular purchase agreements. We send them in, and then the judge awards the ownership or purchase to the best purchase, right? It doesn't always have to do with the highest one. It might have to do with the highest one that has the best financial backing and proof of funds so that they actually sell them off. Okay, so that's the way receivership works. Now, what happens is most of the time that money goes into a master account and nobody lands up getting their money back, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is most of that money goes to legal fees, and so that money evaporates into thin air. Okay, so for those of you guys that were with SVB Bank, my heart goes out to you guys. The bank itself specialized in lending to venture capital and private equity firms. That was their specialty, okay? But that was their primary area of interest. But this just goes to show that the banking vulnerability right now, and this is what is aimed towards raising interest rates. So expect, investors, ladies and gentlemen, that interest rates will go up because of what's happening right now with SVB Bank. And what's happened is that because the market has contracted over the last year, people are going in, business CEOs, founders of their companies are going in, they need capital. And so because of the contraction, they're going in, and the banks don't have the financial reach to be able to give back that capital to people. And so because the money's invested, the banks know that money has to be invested in assets in order to make returns, because a bank's a business just like anything else out there. You know, it makes its money off of lending money at a higher rate and taking your money at a very low rate, less than 1% returns, and then lending it out to people at a higher return. Right now, it's right around 7%. And then they make that spread in between what they take from you and pay you out and what they actually lend it out as. Now, because that money typically is tied up, just like it is for us as investors, when someone comes to us and say, hey, Jerome, you're worth $100 million. It isn't like I can scratch a check for $100 million because it's in assets, right? So my assets are only worth to me what they produce in cash flow. That's why I like cash producing assets. So when the bank comes in and people are trying to get more money out than they have liquid, the bank goes into financial distress. This is not only happening to SVB Bank, ladies and gentlemen, this is happening to other banks as well. That's why they have to lend money at higher rates right now as well. It's not just to stabilize inflation. So those of you guys who think that the feds are doing this only to stabilize inflation are completely wrong. They're also doing this because they have to as a means to give back to the financial institutions monetary returns to help them get more cash flow so they can give back money to you guys that need money out of your bank accounts. So I've always told people, don't bank money. Money in the bank is absolutely worthless because it doesn't make you nothing, ladies and gentlemen. You can save it there for a short time, but then what we do is we flush and dump and we buy an asset that's cash producing. Then we go and we build that account back up. Then we flush and dump and we buy an asset that's cash producing. Then we build it back up, we flush and dump, and then we go out and buy an asset that's cash producing. Ladies and gentlemen, banks are in financial distress right now like SVB. Now, are all of them? No. Balance sheets of banks right now are doing really good because there was over $9 trillion of money that was printed by the Federal Reserve over the pandemic. Now, there are banks like SVB Bank where customers are coming in trying to withdraw money. They don't have they don't have the liquidity to be able to give that money back, and so they're leveraging the FDIC to insure people's money. Problem is, the FDIC themselves are also broke. The FDIC doesn't have a bandwidth financially to support everything that they've insured. So the FDIC, on a small marginal base, is only going to insure 11% of the $175 billion in deposits that just went bad with SVB Bank. So ladies and gentlemen, how does this affect our market? How does this affect investors? How does this affect you? And what should we look at moving forward? Well, I'm going to bring you more of these updates as this unfolds, because we don't have a crystal ball, right? But the projections say this. Anytime one bank goes into this type of financial distress, it's not just this one bank. So what we have to be concerned with is we have to be concerned with the financial stability of other median banks and how they're actually sitting financially right now in liquidity. And so be careful with your money, putting so much of it in the banks. Is it still a safe place to put your money in the bank temporarily? Yes, but don't leave it there for a long time and not large quantities of it. Now, pay attention to what's happening. Watch market research in relation to stocks on your bank. So if you're banking with JP Morgan, with Chase, with Goldman Sachs, with Merrill Lynch and Bank of America, whether you're banking with a small local bank, pay attention to their stocks. Credit unions right now will win. If your money's in a credit unions are non-for-profit. Okay, they're not non-profit, they're just non-for-profit. They're owned by their members. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the best place to park your money right now, if you're considering migrating it from a big bank to a smaller institution, put it in a local credit union. Local credit unions typically don't have the debt that financial institutions have. So back in 2008, what we did is the big banks, Bank of Oklahoma was one that I just wanted to slice their throat because they were slicing my throat on retail investments that we had and new builds that we had back in 2008. And so they were putting us under financial distress because they were having fee-heavy stuff to underwrite our accounts all the time. We were never late, never missed a payment. They were just trying to call our money because they hated the retail assets in 2008. Hence, put us in a really financially distressed place because they were hard pressing us. So we can continue to fight with them. When we finally got sick of fighting with them, we went to a local credit union, and that local credit union landed up lending us money on multiple retail buildings that we owned at that time, hence saving us because most of our assets were financed at about 7%. The credit unions financed them down at about 4.5%. So we saved money. Not only did we save money, but we had an institution that supported what we were doing, and they just left us alone. So ladies and gentlemen, credit unions are a great place to park your money right now. If you're worried about big banks and the stability of them, expect continued increases in interest rates throughout 2023. We'll let the politicians figure out what they're doing in 2024, but 2024 is an election year, so this doesn't change that, ladies and gentlemen. So the chances of interest rates going down in 2024 are good, but my belief is that the Feds are going to get extremely aggressive with a migration of increasing interest rates right now. One, because of inflation, but two, because they need to, based on what's happening right now with banks like SVB Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, for more investment information, knowledge, wisdom on investing in real estate, banking, and how money works, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Pound that thumbs up button. You guys all go out and make it an incredible Saturday. God bless you guys. Go out and compound your success.